Okay, we are starting. Good afternoon. Thank you for participating with us today in the Every Student Success Act application public meeting. With me is Cloris Rangel. She is the Executive Director of Multilingual Education at Forward ISD. My name is Mirjit Crespo. I'm the Senior Officer of Grants and Development, and I'm responsible for the submission of the application for Every Student Success Act funding. To start, I want to remind a couple of items with you. We have a website where the federal funding on the Every Student Success Act information that we are sharing today will be there, and with more information and more resources for you. Also, we encourage you to type comments and questions in the chat so we can address them at the end of the presentation. And also, in case that you don't have questions right now, or you think of questions later, we are requiring you or requesting you to please use the Let's Talk application. I have put a quick QR code in there, so you have access faster when you're seeing it in the screen. But the presentation will be posted in the website tomorrow, so you can go in and those links will be live. To start, we want to give a little bit background on what the Every Student Succeeds Act is. And that is the funding that the district gets from the federal government. Is an entitlement, and what that means is based on formula dedicated to based on those a number of students that we have under the different funding allocations or priorities that the government have established. This Every Student Succeed Act was the reauthorization made in 2015 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. So these are funds that have been coming to public education since then and have been reauthorized 5 times after that. This is the last reauthorization and is the guidance that we had to follow to be able to use the funds. This also is administered by the Texas Education Agency, and they receive the funds from the federal government, and then they redistribute the funds to the district, which make us responsible to distribute the funds to the campuses. The funds are also awarded annually and are subject to programs guidelines. It's very highly monitored by the state because the government, the federal government can come and review those guidance that we have followed those guidance at any time, including some of those guidance include need assessment, required planning, input from community members and the schools and the students and our staff. And we have to document all those processes, including the campus improvement plans and the district improvement plan. So in here, you are gonna see, of course, I'm sorry, okay. So here you have the different allocations per grant. And for some reason, my chair decided not to share. So I'm gonna change it pretty quick and share it here. So you still can see it? Yes? Okay, so my Title I allocation for Forward ISD is $35 million, $35.9 million. And the focus of Title I is improving academic achievement. We will go through each one in a little more detail later. Or allocation for Title II Part A, that is for preparing and training and recruiting high quality teachers, principals, and school staff, is $3.8 million. Title III Part A is focusing on supporting English language acquisition, enhancement, and academic achievement of English learners, and is $2.6 million. And our Title IV Part A funding is $2.2 million, and the focus is to provide student support and academic enrichment. So Clarice is going to help me now to share with you what each one of these programs do.
Wonderful. So all of these federal funds have a specific targeted group that they are supporting. And the way that they sort of work is that they're hierarchical as far as like Title I reaches more students, and then each one gets a little more specific as we go up the ladder. So with Title I, this provides supplemental funding to ensure that all children have a fair, equal opportunity to really obtain high quality education and really prepare for college success. And go to the next one. Title II is really looking at our teachers and making sure that we provide additional supplemental funding to really provide evidence-based professional development for our teachers. Title III looks at providing supplemental funding specifically for English learners and immigrant students. The targeted focus for them is to attain English proficiency and for them to be able to develop those high levels of academic achievement. So these allocated funds are meant to help students access and be able to be successful in all of the academic standards that each state has for them. And then we have Title IV. And so this particular funding is looking to support students and provide that academic enrichment. And so it increases what already the state does to really teach the whole student. So it's looking at some of those wraparound services that help provide additional support for students outside the academics, but that help support academics.
So part of our goal today is discussing not only what the funding that we receive, and we gave you a big overview. Clarice helped me to give you an overview of each one of the big funding sources that we receive, but also to go over a little bit of the application to give you a scope of how the state require us to provide our information, and also what is the information that we had to gather behind that application in order to be in compliance of all the requirements from the federal government. So this is your table of content of our application. It has, of course, a general information for the applicant description, different information about who we serve, and the funding that we have, campus selection and program budget. I will go over each one of those sections briefly so you have a scope of what we are talking about. So with the first portion that the state requires us to do is set aside, and this is from the federal government, not the state, but this is how the application look like, is we have to provide funding to those students that are participating in private schools that could have been forward ISD students. And that is called private non-for-profit school equitable services. That is a guarantee the federal government does that to all our students that they are going to receive services under these funds, regardless of where they choose to go to school. I want to be clear that this is in existence since the first reauthorization of the statute, the act. So it's not new from 2015. It has been already in place for a long time. The Forward ISD has several private schools that participate on private owned services. And this is how we calculate how much funding we need to take from the top before we begin to distribute funds to our schools and our services or initiatives. So right now, we have to do for Title I, we had to do a set aside also, we call it a set aside, is setting aside a portion of the funds based on the number of students enrolled on those private schools. So that was our Title I, this is our Title II set aside, and this is our Title III set aside. I know it looks a little small in here, sorry. Then we had to establish how many students we have in our campuses, and that is determined by a series, by a count that we do in the fall, and that number needs to be reported again. So this is the check and balances the state does all the time with us. You told us, we tell them in October how many students we have, who is participating as a English learner student, who is participating that is an at-risk student, who has free and reduced lunch, who is in the poverty area. And then the state asks us in the application to do the report again, to double check our numbers and be sure that we are really serving and reporting the information with as much accuracy that we need. Something I wanted to highlight in here, this is a 9 pages section, so I only did a snapshot, but I wanted to highlight here that our total low income percentage is 85%. Not everybody on this can see the scope when you think that the total enrollment is 74,000 students and 85% of them are on free or reduced lunch. Then this next section, I'm sorry. The next section for this is actually our budget summary. And I'm gonna make it a little bigger for you. And this is how we need to present the breakdown of the budget for each one of the programs. Keep in mind, when we introduced Title I, we didn't establish the difference between Title I Part A, Title I Part C, Title I Part D, because it's all under the statute of Title I. Part A is for all students in the economic disadvantage. Part C is for our migrant students. Part D is the students are in delinquent and neglected facilities. And then you have those, all of them. That's why this Title I is for all students, is because all of those are qualified under the statute of called Title I. And then for Title III, we also have 2 sections, one for Title III Part A, ELA, that is the generic umbrella that takes care of all the English learners. And then we get a supplemental amount based on the number of immigrant students that we have to support that specific subpopulation under immigrant students. So this is next, and Teresa is going to help us with that again, is how we distribute these funds and what that means on activities for us.
So our charge at the district level is to then really look at the needs that we have for each type of population that we're serving and utilize strategies to really support the students that particular funding source is for. So when we're looking at Title I, these are the particular strategies we can utilize to provide support to all of our Title I students. We can use funds for principals to select things that they need for their struggling students. So campuses receive this funding and they tie it to their campus improvement plan, which is tied to their specific data at their particular school. This funding can also be used for our instructional coaches. So every school that has the population, one or all of the Title I students, they also have this instructional coach to help provide that support. Technology specialist to really support those campus needs. Additional professional development, especially if there are programs or things like that that are purchased. We want to make sure that our teachers or whoever's providing that support to the students knows how to do it and implement it well. For family engagement and community outreach, as well as additional support for our students who are homeless, neglected, or delinquent. A lot of times they, again, will need more wraparound type service. And then, of course, equitable services for struggling students who attend private schools. A certain amount must be allocated for them as well. When we look at Title II, remember I mentioned before, it was really to build the capacity of our teachers serving our students. So it can be used for recruitment, for certification to help increase the number of teachers who can serve our students. It can be used for early learning coaches. We know that the early learning is an enhanced type of instruction that our early learning students need. And so our teachers will need coaches to kind of help provide them that support. Additional professional development coaches can be a part of the strategy as well. We're entering our third year of the literacy academies, which was a big initiative across the state. And so our teachers needed professional development with that, instructional initiatives, and then of course anything that's really specific to content-based to provide equity. And then also, again, those equitable services for our private school teachers as well. And for Title III, we're looking at what are those programs that will help our English learners really attain English proficiency and acquire content knowledge. So it's both that we have to support our students with. So there could be programs specifically to that language development and acquisition. And there's also programs that can help scaffold the content so that it's comprehensible and the students understand, even though English is not their first language, it is presented in a way that helps them understand what they need to learn. Professional development for the teachers who are serving the students, of course. Anytime we're purchasing any program or any instructional resource, we need our teachers and our school leaders to really know what it is, how it's used, and how it's going to be measured and to help our students be successful, both in the academic as well as in the language needs that our English learners have. Additional strategies are to promote our family, community, and engagement because many of our English learners are coming from families who also do not speak English. And so we need to make sure that we're providing them the support that they need at home to help their students do well in school. And last but not least, Title III also includes support specifically for immigrant students. As Marjit mentioned earlier, there's the Title III has a separate breakdown also for immigrant students, and that is typically designated whenever we have an influx of immigrant students. We receive additional funding for that. Title IV strategies include a lot of our college and career readiness. So programs specific for academic advisement. So really making sure that our students know what their options and choices are. The on-ramps program is funded here. Coding can also be included. And then also the social emotional interventions, such as the family resource and action centers, to really make sure we're providing that additional support for students and their families. The response to intervention, stay in school support specific for our students because we want them to be successful, and Title IV affords that, as well as trauma-informed support and training for our students and families as well.
I was reminded to unmute myself. So to continue here, thank you, Clarice. On the application, just for you to see what is required from us, all this information that we collect, and we set aside the funds for the personnel that we are going to pay with this funding, we had to have a support for this. So it's not just a need assessment at campus level and district level and how we are going to support it, but also the job descriptions and the awareness of the personnel the awareness of the personnel has that they are being paid with these funds and how these funds work. So I just wanted to give you the clarity that even that the application is very brief and is asking only what kind of positions, we have to document every one of the positions paid with these funds and being able to demonstrate that they are allowable and they are, which means that we are in a good, allowable means that they are appropriate for the funding and the purpose of those funds to be used. The same with the contracted services. So we have a generic request from TEA explaining what are the subtotals of contracted services and what is consulting with a person that comes and consult, or what is a vendor that requires services. And there is requirements for us to do contracts because these federal funds are very specific on what kind of things, guidelines we have to follow to contract with vendors. And then finally, other operating costs is you see in there, the state requires even more details when it's travel out of a state or travel for students. So they guarantee that we are doing things inside the parameters of the grant and that we are not infringing on what the requirements and the purpose of these funds is. So this is very brief how we use the funds in the district, what kind of information we wanted to share. Now, in case that you have questions, that is my phone number and Chloe's phone number. And I included again the Let's Talk QR code that Let's Talk come directly to my office. So we will be able to address these things. I saw a couple of questions in the chat that I want to address. The first one is Title I Part C. Title I Part C, as Gloris addressed in there, it supports migratory students and it's $26,000. I didn't address it because the number of migratory students we have in the district is small, and we partner with Region 11 to be able to supply services to all the districts that are in Region 11. Region 11 is the regional service center allocated by TEA in this region to support around 100 districts, Clarice, I think, 110 school districts in the area. And what we do is we accumulate the funds with those districts, and that way we can serve better the students that are migratory, that are in the different districts in the region. So that's something that the law allows us to do, and it's better for our students to be able to centralize the services across the region when they move frequently. The other portion that I was expecting questions was private and for-profits. So we are required by the federal law to set aside funds, as I explained it before, to serve the students that could have been forward ISD but choose to go to private, non-for-profit schools. The equitable service means that they can participate in services equal or similar to the services that we provide to our students in our district. So for example, for Title I, because we cannot pay for a teacher in a general classroom because it's only for those students eligible to receive the services, we provide tutoring services. We do this also through this region consortium because it helps us to minimize costs and maximize services to these campuses. Right now, Forward ISD have 20 private schools participating on these services between Title I, II, and III. So I don't have the exact number right now, but I can post that. Depending on which program we are talking about, if we are talking about Title I, it's usually tutoring services for these students and some specific support for special education if it's needed. What we usually guide special education to the special education department. Then we have entitled to professional development for the teachers that are taking care of these students, and that is evaluated through TEA and also coordinated with Region 11. So we cover those concerns, any concerns that people could have about validity of the training in the academic area. And for Title III, for bilingual support, for English learner support, Clarice department, support them, evaluating the students, be sure that services that they are required, and supporting those teachers to provide the services to those students. There is another question that I just saw in there. The meeting, let me start with that. The meeting, remind people, the meeting is being translated right now, interpreted right now. So you just need to, tienes que apretar el botón de interpretación y vas a escucharlo en español. For private schools, is no including charters. That's the difference between private schools and charter schools. Charter schools receive state funding. Therefore, they are tied to other guidelines and other requirements, and they receive their own funding, and they have to do their own applications and their own reports to the state. Private schools do not receive funding from the state. So that's the difference between one and the other. It doesn't matter if they are secular or religious. That is not what makes a difference on how they receive the funds, is that they are non for profit. That's the important part. We are prohibited to use the funds and remember, we don't give them money, we give them services, we provide them services. And it's very, in the law, it's very clear that all the services must be secular on nature, regardless of what the school is, even if the school is a religious school. Was another question. Okay, yes, that campuses that receive funding can choose with their schools site-based decision-making team, going through the process of establishing their need assessment and writing the information in their campus improvement plan. They can select to add teachers to their roster to support the campuses. The positions that we do in the application, I'm trying to go through all the questions I'm seeing for Title I, and only the administrative positions. The positions in the campuses are not being numbered in the application. The positions in the campuses are kept in a separate list that we provide to TA as required, because those are dependent on the campus needs and the campus's priorities. They are very independent on what they choose. All we do is limited them on what is allowable, what is permitted, what the guidance tell us can be done based on the purpose of the grant. Let me go. I see a question about security. We just finished updating a set of doors across the district. It was a huge evaluation done during the year. We have some issues with supply, like everybody. So I cannot tell you an update on how we are doing with all the emergency locks, but we are working right now. We just submitted 2 grants for safety and security, and there is today a news from the governor that is more funding coming up. So we will have to follow through, be sure that we take and maximize the funding that we are allowed to take for security and safety. Substitute students, substitute teachers. We can support, let's be clear, the funding that is, I want to support that a little bit. Every one of these funds, Title I, II, or III, or IV, have a specific population that we should focus on, and it's very important that we don't go outside what the expectations of the grant is. So we can use substitute teachers as long as they are inside of the parameters of the grant. Our problem with substitute teachers is really more the market than what the funding we have to pay for the teachers. And unfortunately, that's completely out of our control at this point. Free and reduced lunch, we are working towards having free lunches for all students this year. I cannot answer in concrete that now because it's not under our scope, but I know that this is working very hard to be sure that we can guarantee free lunches for all students. Free supplies, that is under the emergency funds, the ESSER funds, and yes, we are doing some plans for that this year, continuing based on what we did last year. It was very effective and it relieved the parents on this. The intention of the meeting is, of course, to give us ideas and tell us what do you consider should be our priority. We are presenting you what we are expecting to do. We don't, this is no final, this is what we want to discuss and show you. If we don't present you what we want, it's going to be very hard to be able to see what our concerns could be. Safety and security, as I say before, we have other funding sources. We have to be very careful first to be able to satisfy the purpose of each one of the funding. Federal funds are very tight on how much flexibility we have for each one of the causes. Actually, you see how the name of the grants are. Title I is for students at risk. Title II is for professional development, because that's the population we had to pursue. Right now, we just finalized, like I said before, a grant for safety and security, and we just applied for over $1 million for another grant on safety and security, another federal grant with the Department of Justice. So in Forward ISD, my department works very hard to be able to maximize the funds that are available from the government and no overlap services that is going to be just putting ourselves over each other and no use the money effectively. So we understand that that's a priority. We are very clear that's a priority, and it's a commitment for us to be aware of everything that comes that can help us to support any of those high needs that we have in the district. For immigrants and English learners, I'm gonna let Clarissa expand a little bit more where we are trying to do and the funding that we are using on that.
Sure. So yes, the Title III funding is used specifically for English learners. And so there are several programs that we have that we want to continue. One of the things that we did in our self-assessment and reviewing areas that we can improve on, one of the areas that we're looking at doing more of is family and parent and community engagement. And so we're actually wanting to expand in that particular area, both with personnel who can plan events and help support campuses with that. And also, additional resources that can help, bridge that and make more of a homeschool connection for our English learners. The other piece that it will be new for this coming year is we're receiving immigrant funds that we had not received for this past year. Our number of immigrant students has increased over 10%. And so because of that, the federal government is now awarding us this additional funding for next school year. So in planning for that population, we are also looking at, adding personnel who can help provide some of the wraparound services for immigrant students. Many of them, obviously they do not know the Fort Worth ISD community. They may not know where to go for support or whether it's, academic support for their students, also, the social and cultural piece. Many of them are coming from, they're refugees or all, their background could be extensive. And so looking at what can we do to really provide support to them. They may need help with where do they find vaccines for their students. They may not know where they might be able to access, free services or services that are at a reduced amount. And so we're really wanting to provide some of that support with personnel. Also with academic counseling for our students. Our students come from 4-year-old to 21-year-old. It's a big wide range. And so we want our students to know, one, the school system, because many of them are not familiar with that. And, what does it take to graduate? What does it mean to graduate here in the United States and here in Fort Worth ISD? So what happens beyond that? They have an option for college, they have an option for career. Someone sort of needs to guide them. And so we're looking at increasing the support, again, with community and family specialists who can help provide that support. The district already is doing a big initiative with that. And so we don't want to just do the same thing. We really want to be specific when we're looking at targeting, whether it's English learners in particular, what can we do to really help provide them the specific and targeted support that they need so that they can be academically successful. But then also looking at our immigrant population. So it's twofold in providing that support for all of our students here in Fort Worth ISD. So we're excited about the possibilities of being able to do more.
Thank you. I wanted to show you, and let me stop sharing and share again, where you can find more information. If you in our website go to the departments and go to grants and development, you have a section for federal programs and the ESSER funds, that is the funds that I was discussing before that are going to provide supplies and materials for the elementary school students, and a stipend for our teachers to be able to buy school supplies. It's also in a link for the federal funds where the invite for today was, and where the PowerPoint is going to be posted, the amount for each one of the funding, and at the end, how our Title I funds are being distributed across the district. So you will be able to see, I'm trying to get the chat again, sorry. You will be able to see any of your schools, and I'm going to choose one, and who is the principal at this moment, and then what is the amount allocated for Title I. At this point, we only showing what is the funding that campus is receiving. So it gives you an idea of how much that campus can distribute for their students, independently of the support that the district is doing as a district for all the Title I campuses. So it's a little way for us to show how the information, how you can reach the information, and you can get to the school website once you click to the school and being able to check the campus improvement plan for that school and see all the distribution of funds. So really the intention is more for our application, and be sure that we understand and the community can share what their expectations are and how we can contribute on how the funding is being used, and making a decision at campus level or at district level, and being able to share with the community that information. That is all that I can see. I'm checking the chat to see if I have we will have the PowerPoint presented so we can see it on the other in the website, and we have the Let's Talk, and the application will be submitted later. So we have time to review and analyze the needs of other areas and other organizations that can tell us what is important for the campuses and for the district as a whole. That was the purpose today. I want to hear, I mean, if you have questions on, or you have suggestions on what priorities we should be looking at that are beyond what we presented, that is our intention today, is hearing you and see what options you consider we should be looking at, because we have opportunities right now with this funding on other funding to prioritize things that the community consider more important for our students in order to facilitate them, their performance, and being able to provide their teachers, their schools, and their parents with ability to use and learn better. We have, Clarice, I don't know if you have more information. There is somebody asking about supporting or non-bilingual teachers on learning and being certified ESL. And we have a program to do that.
Yes, we do. And actually that comes out of our state funding. There are supports that the state provides just because we are, because of the number of English learners we have in our district, we are mandated to provide bilingual and ESL services to our students. And so for teachers who would like to add that as a supplemental addition to their certificate, we do provide training for that. We provide reimbursement for teachers who are wanting to take either of the certification supplemental exams. And, this year, because of ESSER, we've been able to also provide an additional stipend to teachers who can complete that. As far as language courses, there are some that are provided that are part of the umbrella for certification, but they are not beginning level classes. So these would be classes for teachers who already have some proficiency in Spanish and maybe just need a little bit more coaching to be able to pass the language proficiency test that the state gives when they are assessing your Spanish proficiency for certification. So it's not necessarily like a beginner's class to begin to have conversation.
I'm gonna post again our links and phone numbers. Sorry, I have to.
There was another question here asking about translations. And so that whenever it's a public event and so forth, those should be required from where they're being presented and so forth. So that again would be local, like that's a local piece that we utilize. These federal funds are meant to go above and beyond. And so these funds would not be used for that particular purpose. We would need to be using our local funds for anything that would be required for us to provide access to families.
But we can share that information to the board meeting, to the board department to see what we can do to achieve that. For them, we are almost to the hour, but I want to address the increase of salaries that we have approved yesterday for the board. As Clarice just said, this funding is to supplement what the district is doing. So any position, supplemental position that is being paid with the grant will get the increase from the grant. But if the position is paid with local budget, the increase will come from the local budget. we don't do the increases from different funding sources. That creates a commingle of funds that could be at risk for us to guarantee, like I say at the beginning, guarantee the integrity of the fund and that we are really in compliance with the expectation. I really wanted to hear anything else that you want to think about how we can improve. We are very aware of the security. That was one of the things we discussed in the beginning earlier with Clarice and I. I was expecting a lot of questions about security and the use of funds for security. We are working very hard to, as I say, to be able to use the most of the funding as possible. So knowing that that is a priority for the community and what are those things that you want, help us to build the applications to respond to those needs. But we want to be sure that we maximize the funding that we already have for that area and that we can apply. I mean, as I said earlier, the governor just approved millions of dollars for safety and security, and we want to participate in that opportunity, not taking funds for other initiatives that are more academic in nature and being able to use the fund that is for safety and security on safe and security and maximize that. I can know there is other about bathrooms and auditoriums. I know this is something that has been brought up. I will have to follow up with that because that the bond funds were allocated for some of those areas. So I will have to ask the personnel, the chief of infrastructure to be sure that that is, what is the response for that question? I'm sorry. Is my understanding the schools are required to have all doors locked during school hours? We will have to follow up about that for additional maintenance personnel. There is some request that we placed on ESSER funds to support more maintenance personnel. I think that that's in the works. And I say I think because it's a process that needs to be approved before we can increase personnel under any grants. So I will have to double check where the status of that. We are learning with you guys. It's 10 minutes to go. So we want to, Clarice and I discuss a little bit about being able to do this over and over and gather more information. So thank you for your feedback. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you. And we can consider, you see that question, Clarice? That's a good idea. Thank you. See, we can consider beginners and figure it out how we can support you so you can get later the certification. That would be a very good long-term program. Well, I'm gonna close it here. As I say before, we still have, we are open. We are gonna review your comments on more detail. We are gonna be sure that we are not missing any of your requests. And I personally committed to discuss or at least share your concerns about translations for the board meetings and the security and the processes for some of the things, so we can integrate this information for other areas in the district that may be able to use other funds or other processes to achieve these questions that you have. I really, really appreciate your participation. I was very happy that I see the questions and how you have been participating. We will post the application, the presentation tomorrow. And as I say before, you have the Let's Talk link in the screen right now. We will review your input We will review the application details and we will add as much as we can because you have amazing ideas. Thank you very much for your participation. Anything you want to say, Clarice?
I would just add, if you didn't get a chance to add your suggestions or your ideas, as Marjit shared the website with you, you can take your time and kind of go in and or add it through the Let's Talk. Those will also be reviewed. So you do still have time to look at it. As we mentioned in the presentation, each federal funding has a certain target and a certain focus. So as you give us the suggestions, keep those in mind, that there's either a specific group that supports, for example, Title II, that's professional development for teachers, and y'all are talking about additional courses for teachers, maybe in Spanish. That could maybe be funded there because that's about developing our teachers, and so each one will kind of look at and see which funding stream and source would be most appropriate. So we appreciate all your ideas and for you all joining us today. And we hope that this is one of many more to come because we want to continue this partnership because we know you all have really good ideas to help us improve. Thank you.